Hello. I hope that it's lovely to see in the comments everybody saying we're here because we're here because we're here because we're here. That's just so, what a wonderful surprise. What a, yeah, I hope that's as moving for everyone else as it is for me. It's really, wow. I don't think I've ever seen anything like that before. But it's that was lovely to see, and I hope that y'all are doing well. Congratulations on solving the uh, riddle, I guess you would call it. I don't know if it was a riddle. What was it? The clue. That there will be more of that. I don't know how I feel about this light being so bright. It's a little too bright for my tastes. How's that? Oh, much more humane. There will be more of those in the coming weeks. I want to do maybe one of these every week or two. So, yeah, I will make the future ones harder, but I figured this one should be easy because there weren't going to be that many people. Yeah. What's in the boxes? Well, long time nerd fighters will know that what's in the boxes are sheets. Hold on, I'll get you some. I'm going to show you. I've signed about almost 10,000 sheets so far, about 8,500. It's been really fun. It's been really just nice, like a nice break. It's a different kind of work. So yeah. So what's in the box are sheets. It's likely that whoever asked that question was kidding, but I'm giving you a serious answer because I'm an overly earnest person. And these are all sheets that will be tipped in 2 copies of the Anthropocene Reviewed book before it comes out in May. And so this is how you make sure that all the pre-orders are signed, at least the pre-orders in the US and Canada. The only way to make sure that they are signed is to sign a lot of books. It's been really lovely. I like, it's just meditative and relaxing and repetitive and yeah, really nice. It's been good. And I wanted to, I guess I wanted to read a little bit, answer some questions, but yeah, mostly thanks for being here. And I wanted to read a little to, I guess that's what I want this to be about, is like a chance to read for people without having to like read for the whole public. I'm interested in the same way in 2007, I was really interested, Hank and I were really interested in trying to find ways to talk to as many people as possible and to make like exciting, collaborative, very public, aggressively public spaces. I think now Hank and I are maybe a little. There obviously there's still a huge part of our lives that is based around that, but we're interested in finding ways to talk with a community that is publicly available, but is still maybe a little less public than Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, etc. So this has been a good kind of in between space for me. The unlisted video that takes a measure of that has a little bit of a barrier to entry, right? Like if you think about it, 2007 YouTube had a little bit of a barrier to entry in the sense that the videos weren't that fun to watch. So you had to be like you had to have a certain level of desire to be involved because none of the videos on YouTube in 2007 were that good. So this is really just an extension of that in some ways. All right, so I don't know what it's the 5,000 days of. But yeah. Keyboard Cat was like pretty interesting, but remember Keyboard Cat was from 1987. Is it really 5,000 days of Vlogbrothers? Good God. Oy. Oh my. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for the good wishes. That seems impossible. But I am grateful to have been around for 5,000 days. It has been, I was going to say fun, but more up and down. Okay. I'm going to read a little bit. So, I'm not going to read like the book as currently written in its entirety. I'm just going to read like a couple of essays that I'm trying to figure out if they work, basically. Um, so I'm not going to read like your favorites. I'm going to read like your least favorites to try to understand if they work. Like, I'm not sure about uh, this one. Yeah, there's a bunch of them that I'm just not at all sure about. I'm gonna try this one about Halley's Comet. No, I'm not gonna try that one yet because I haven't done a good job of expanding that one yet. I'm gonna try this one about scratch and sniff stickers, and then I'll read a new one after this. But I want to try to read this one about scratch and sniff stickers. So I have a podcast, The Anthropocene Reviewed. It's coming out as a book in May. And this, I mean, y'all all know this, but this is part, maybe there's some of you who don't. You'll hear, by the way, sounds from upstairs because we live in a very poorly insulated home, and at least when it comes to sound insulation. And so you can hear every step that my kids take. All right, this is a review of scratch and sniff stickers. It's an attempt by me to try to like talk about the past and the way that the past can be encapsulated, and I need to do a better job in the final review of connecting this idea of encapsulation to the past. Okay. Smell is one of the last places where virtual reality still feels deeply virtual. A few months ago, I found myself at a theme park riding a VR roller coaster that felt breath-stealingly real. It wasn't just that falling felt like falling and turning felt like turning. As I flew through ocean spray, I felt mist on my face. But that water did not smell like the ocean. It smelled like this room deodorizer we'd used in high school called Spring Rain. Spring rain didn't actually smell like spring rain any more than it smelled like the ocean, but the scent was somehow wet, so I could understand why it had been repurposed as oceany. Still, nobody who's ever smelled the brackish din of a cresting wave could possibly mistake the scent could possibly mistake it for the scent being pumped into that VR experience, and the smell of spring rain wrenched my brain from its spring rain brain, wrenched my mind, say mind, wrenched my mind from its state of joyfully suspended disbelief, and suddenly I was not on a flying tour of an alien planet, but instead stuck inside a dark room with a bunch of strangers. One of the things that makes smell so powerful, of course, is its connection to memory. The smell of artificial spring rain takes me back to an Alabama dorm room in 1993. The smell of actual spring rain returns me to the sudden drenching thunderstorms of my childhood in Central Florida. The radical specificity of smell is part of what makes imitation so difficult, even when it comes to artificial odors. The scent of Chanel No. 5, for instance, is not patented, and it doesn't need to be because no one can recreate it. But I think there's something else at play with smells that try to mimic nature, which is that nothing in the real world ever smells quite like we imagine it ought to. Quite like we imagine it should. I don't like ought to there. Spring rain, for instance, seems like it ought to smell at once moist and crisp, like the artificial scent does, but in fact, it smells earthy and acidic. I mean, the hard thing about this review is that one, I'm trying to go back and forth between the present and the past. Two, there's this like construct of spring rain being two different things. And I don't have a good marker for when, like a visual marker when you're reading for when you're talking about spring rain, the artificial scent, and spring rain, the actual thing. I mean, I can do it with capital letters, but like that doesn't really, it doesn't, I don't know. Okay, let's keep going. Spring rain, for instance, seems like it ought to smell at once moist and crisp, like the artificial scent does, but in fact, it smells earthy and acidic. Like, I think that sentence is very confusing if you don't know I just think that sentence is confusing. Humans, meanwhile, smell like the exhalations of the bacteria that colonize us, a fact that we go to extraordinary lengths to conceal, not only via soap and perfume, but also by how we collectively imagine the human scent. I do like this. Like, if you had an artificial intelligence read every novel ever written, and then, based on those stories, guess the human odor, the AI would be wildly wrong. In our stories, people smell like vanilla and lavender and sandalwood. The AI would presume we smell not like the slowly decaying organic matter we are, but instead like newly mown grass and orange blossoms. I like sandalwood a lot, so I'm adding that in because I think that's funny. The word sandalwood is inherently funny. But instead, like newly mown grass and orange blossoms, which incidentally were two of the scratch and sniff sticker scents from my childhood. Scratch and sniff stickers were wildly popular in the 1980s, and I maintained a collection of them in a large pink sticker book. The stickers fascinated me. If you scratched or rubbed them, a real scent would emerge that wasn't there until you scratched. Like most virtual scents, scratch and sniff smells tend to be rather imperfect simulacrums. Never known how to say that word, and I still don't. But I don't need to because this is a written book. Simulacrums, maybe, which is why the stickers generally depict the scent that they're going for. Like the pizza scented stickers are usually slices of pizza and so on. But the stickers really do smell, often quite overpoweringly. The smells best captured by scratch and sniff tend to be either aggressively artificial, cotton candy for instance, or else straightforwardly chemical. Like a rotten eggsy odor is added to natural gas so that humans can smell a gas leak. And in 1987, the Baltimore Gas and Electric Company sent out scratch and sniff cards to their customers that mimicked the odor so effectively that several hundred people called the fire department to report leaks before the cards were discontinued. By the time I was 10 or 11, everyone had moved on from sticker collecting. Everyone, that is, except for me. Even in middle school, I continued to surreptitiously collect stickers, especially scratch and sniffed ones. I had all the hits: Garfield eating chocolate, the lawnmower that smelled like grass, the taco sticker that smelled like tacos. But I particularly loved the fruits. Raspberry and strawberry smelled so cloyingly and otherworldly sweet. And bananas, God, I loved scratch and sniff bananas. They didn't smell like bananas. They smelled like the platonic ideal of bananas. If real bananas were a note played on a home piano, scratch and sniff bananas were that same note played on a church's pipe organ. Anyway, the weird part is not that I collected scratch and sniff stickers until I was a teenager. The weird part is that I still have that sticker album, and the scratch and sniff stickers, when scratched, still erupt with scent. So I think I know what I have to do. And I never would have figured it out if I hadn't read to you. But I'm going to go ahead and finish this, even though I think I know what I need to do, and I'm going to highlight where I think I need to do it. I don't know how to highlight. Maybe I use this button. Oh yeah, look at that. It all turned yellow. These stickers are created by a process called microencapsulation, which was developed in the 1960s, originally for carbonless copy paper. When you fill out a white paper form and your pen imprints upon the pink and yellow sheets below, that's microencapsulation at work. Basically, tiny droplets of liquid are encapsulated by a coating that protects the droplet until something decapsulates it. In scratch and sniff stickers, the microcapsules contain scented oils that are released when rubbing or scratching breaks open those capsules. Microencapsulation is used for all kinds of things these days, including time-released medication, and it has proven a useful technology in part because depending on the coating used, microcapsules can last a very long time. Like, while researching this review, I learned that the life expectancy of a scratch and sniff sticker is, at least according to one chemist, probably more than a century, but less than a millennium. At any rate, I know for a fact that scratch and sniff microcapsules can survive for 34 years because I just scratched a garbage can sticker I got when I was 7, and it still smells. Not like garbage exactly, but like something. The longevity of microcapsules offers a tantalizing possibility, of course, that a smell might disappear from our world before the microencapsulated version of that smell disappears. The last time anyone smells a banana, it might be via scratch and sniff sticker or some futuristic version of them, which is the kind of thought that semi-professional reviewers of the Anthropocene find completely irresistible. It all makes me wonder what I don't know if I can continue to make that joke about being a semi-professional reviewer of the Anthropocene, but I really like the joke, but I don't think it works in the book necessarily. It all makes me wonder what smells I've already missed out on by living at this moment in history rather than another one. When thinking about the past, we tend to focus on the awful smells, which were apparently legion. Ancient writers often have an acute awareness of disgusting odors. The Roman poet Martial compares one person's scent to a chicken putrefying in an aborted egg and a billy goat fresh from making love. But there must also have been wonderful smells, many of which are gone now, or at least gone for now. It's conceivable they'll be back with us in scratch and sniff form someday. In 2019, scientists at Harvard used DNA samples of an extinct species of Hawaiian mountain hibiscus and reconstituted the smell of its flower. But of course, there's no way to judge the scent's accuracy, since its antecedent is gone forever. In fact, while I've been making distinctions between natural scents and artificial ones, at this point in our planet's history, many purportedly natural scents are already distorted by human intervention, including the banana. In the US, at least, there is only one banana cultivar in most grocery stores, the Cavendish banana, which didn't exist 200 years ago and was not widely distributed until the 1950s. And I remember the smell of rain as acidic, in part because rain in my childhood actually was more acidic than contemporary rain. Humans were pumping more sulfur dioxide into the atmosphere in the 1980s than they are today, which affects the pH of rain. In my part of the world, rain is still more acidic than it would be without human emissions, so I'm not even sure that I know the smell of natural rain. And so the challenge for scratch and sniff sticker makers isn't in the end to mimic the natural world, which doesn't really exist as a thing separate from humanity. The challenge is to imagine what combination of smells will make humans remember the smell of bananas or ocean mist or freshly mown grass. I wouldn't bet against us finding a way to artificialize scent effectively. God knows we've artificialized much else, but we haven't succeeded yet. When I open that ancient sticker book and scratch at the yellowing stickers curling at the edges, what I smell most is not pizza or chocolate, but my childhood. I give scratch and sniff stickers 3.5 stars. So I think what I need to do is I do have the sticker book, but it's upstairs. I'll show it to you another time. I think what I need to do there is talk about my childhood. Like, I think I need to, I think in that part where I talk about how everyone else moved on and I didn't, I need to talk about like middle school and I need to like make it personal, which won't be fun, but I think will make it better. And I think like you can almost feel me like not wanting to go there. Like that's what when I was reading it this time, I felt like I was like trying to keep it impersonal somehow, or like trying to minimize the personalness of it because it felt like too vulnerable or something, or too risky to like go there in my mind of, you know, how hard middle school was for me and how you know, like how challenging it was to feel out of step with all my peers and to get bullied and stuff. And so I think that's maybe a good way in. It'll be a much longer review, but I think it could be I think it could be better. Two Dime Deal says, I love that line. There's a certain way I talk about the things I don't talk about from the Bonneville Salt Flats part. Yeah. I mean, there's still stuff I don't talk about. So I do like that line a lot too. Like when I wrote it, I was excited. But I think I can get into a little more of why I keep coming back to scratch and sniff stickers as an idea, instead of just having that like one-off semi-joke line about how it was, you know, everyone else was into other stuff and I was still into scratch and sniff stickers. I can, you know, be more honest about the fact that I was like trying to hold on to something of my childhood that you know wasn't working anymore because like the stuff from older kids or the stuff from like the, you know, more grown up world seemed horrible and like was traumatic, you know, like was involved like getting beat up and getting hurt and like getting hurt at school. And all that stuff. So I think there's a way to layer that in a little bit to make it clear why I'm reviewing scratch and sniff stickers in the first place, right? Like to make it, yeah. I think I can do that. Yeah. It may, however, doing that may make it so that I don't know then that the little gray aliens one is necessary anymore. And then there's the teddy bear one. I mean, the problem with the teddy bear one, I mean, the stuff, the personal stuff in the teddy bear one is a little less. It's less specific, you know. It's like it's just a Teddy Ruxpin joke. I do like. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Like, so the whole challenge of this book is like, how do you not repeat yourself when you're like repeating a format? Yeah, and I don't know how to not repeat myself other than maybe not including the scratch and sniff sticker review. I think there's a place to expand one of those, but I don't know which one it's going to be. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So the other one that so let me read one that I haven't that isn't in the podcast so that I can compare and contrast a little bit. There's Diet Dr. Pepper. There's the Taco Bell breakfast menu, which continues to fascinate me. I'll try this. I'll try this one that's about art. That's about this photograph I love. 3 farmers on their way to a dance. So this one's hard because it's hard. The thing that's challenging for me about this one is trying to figure out how to not use dance as a metaphor for war when August Sander was clearly using dance as a metaphor for war. But I think that metaphor holds up better in 1914 than it holds up in 2020. And I don't really want to be normalizing war or normalizing the idea that war is natural or yeah. I don't really. I'm more worried about war than I used to be. So we'll see. Let me see how this one's working. Okay, this is about 3 farmers on their way to a dance. Famous picture. It's been named. August Sander initially called it Young Farmer. This is the other thing that's confusing about this, which is background information, which is not relevant to the review, is that Sander himself originally called the photograph Young Farmers 1914, but then often later referred, or I think from what I can tell, often later referred to the photograph as 3 farmers on their way to a dance. There's no other way that the photograph could have gotten that title, I don't think, because August Sander and those 3 boys were the only people who knew about the picture, who knew that they were on their way to a dance, I think. Yeah, so this is also a good one to read because lots of people in Tuataria are responsible for this review. And they are in a footnote here. And I will read the footnote. In the end, as with so much effort in this world, I was not able to do this by myself and succeeded only by collaborating with others. A group of kind and wildly talented internet sleuths called Tuataria worked together to track down a reporter in Germany who had seen the pictures in question and then convinced the reporter to trek into rural Germany to scan them. To scan them, they are reproduced here for the first time in print. That is me hoping that I can get permission to reproduce those photographs because I don't know that I can. All right, so you got to imagine in your mind 3 photographs. One is this very famous picture, maybe the most famous photograph of the European photograph of the first half of the 20th century, 3 farmers on the way to a dance. It's 3 boys in the mountains on their way to a dance. And then there's 2 pictures later that are pictures of one picture of a family, and one picture of soldiers at war. Three farmers on their way to a dance. Most days I walk past a vertical strip of four. Oh, and I should add that I'll update that. I don't even know if that footnote is totally accurate, and I'll update it and include any names that I need to include. I just wanted to get something there to remind myself to not mess that up. Okay. Most days I walk past a vertical strip of four photographs that features my wife, Sarah, and me. The pictures were taken at a photo booth in Chicago in 2005, just a couple weeks after we got engaged. It's standard photo booth fare, smiles, silly faces, and so on. But the light was good, and we were young. As I get older, the picture keeps changing. In 2005, I thought, this is us. These days, I think, God, we were just kids. Seeing that picture every day helps remind me that in another 15 years, I will see pictures of us in my now and think, look at everything those two didn't know. There is one other photograph I see almost every day. It's a print of a picture by the photographer August Sonder, initially titled Young Farmers 1914, but later known by Sonder and others as Three Farmers on Their Way to a Dance. Sonder took many photographs that he called Young Farmers for his massive, never-finished project, People of the 20th Century, which sought to photograph all sorts of people in Germany, from aristocrats to circus performers to soldiers. But this picture is probably the best known of them all. I first learned about it from Richard Powers' novel, Three Farmers on Their Way to a Dance, which I read in my first year of college. Powers later wrote an autobiographical novel in which a young computer programmer becomes obsessed with the picture and abandons his career to write about it. I too have grown obsessed with the picture. I spent years working to track down the biographies and other extant portraits of the three boys depicted in the photograph. And in the process, I learned that the truth of the picture turns out to be complicated. For starters, the young farmers were not farmers. There's so much to love about this picture. The young men's feet are in the mud, but their heads are in the sky, which is not a bad metaphor for being 20. Their expressions capture the way you feel when you're with your best friends in your nicest clothes. And the clothes themselves are fascinating. As the art critic John Berger wrote, the three young men belong at the very most to the second generation who ever wore such suits in the European countryside. 20 or 30 years earlier, such clothes did not exist at a price which peasants could afford. The landscape in the background might look as it had 100 or 500 years earlier. Before, yep, that's better. Before, but industrialization combined with mass media like films and magazines meant that urban fashion was now available and attractive to people living in the countryside. And I love how they're looking over their shoulders as if they barely have time to pause for the camera before going toward the dance and the rest of their lives. But there's also tension in the picture. The farmers' dandy-like poses with cigarettes and jaunty canes are strangely incongruent with the pastoral landscape in the background. Also, their heads are sort of being cut off by the horizon line, which turns out to be tragically resonant because when the picture was taken, of course, the three farmers were also on their way to World War I. The photograph was made shortly before the assassination. When the picture was taken, of course, the three farmers could not have known that they were also on their way to World War I. The photograph was made shortly before the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Soon, Germany would be at war, and the same industrialization that had made those suits possible would mass produce weapons far deadlier than any the world had previously seen. And so, I'm going to delete that footnote. I'm going to delete that footnote. I don't like it. And so for me, it's a picture about knowing and not knowing. You know you're on your way to a dance, but you don't know you're on your way to a war. You never know what will happen to you, to your friends, to your nation. Philip Roth called history the relentless unforeseen. He said that history is where everything unexpected in its own time is chronicled on the page as inevitable. In the faces of these young farmers, we glimpse how profoundly unexpected the coming horror really was. And we are reminded that there is also a horizon that we cannot see past. I have a picture from January of 2020 taken inside a house. I stand arm in arm with 4 friends. Below us are kids, 8 of them are tangled in a joyful pile, their shared hug having collapsed into a scrum the moment before the picture was taken. Nobody's wearing a mask. In January of 2020, the picture made me laugh. By July, not so much. History is merely a list of surprises, Kurt Vonnegut wrote. It can only prepare you to be surprised yet again. That's a weird sentence that doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to delete it. So that's how I always read the picture. The farmers were symbols of a precarious historical moment. They were reminders that I too would in time be surprised by history, and that a picture, though static, keeps changing as its viewers change. As Anais Nin put it, we do not see things as they are, we see them as we are. But Young Farmers does also depict actual people. And over many years of looking at the picture, I began to wonder not just about the symbolic resonances of those boys, but also about their actual lives. I wanted to know them, insofar as you can know anyone long dead who lived half a world away from you. The boy on the left is Otto. Do I need that? I don't think I do. I think I can delete all that and just have, but Young Farmers does also depict actual people. The boy on the left is Otto Krieger, born in 1894. He actually knew August Sonder because Sonder had photographed Otto and his family back in 1911. Why not say 3 years earlier and not make people do mental math? The negative, that photo, was likely destroyed along with 30,000 other Sonder negatives during World War II, but Krieger's family still has a copy of the picture. As Sonder probably knew, Otto Krieger was not a farmer. He worked in an iron ore mine. So did the boy in the middle, August Klein, whose family had also been photographed by Sonder. And then on the right stands Ewald Klein, who seems to me anyway the most nervous of the boys. With his tight lips and ramrod straight cane, he seems uncomfortable in front of the camera. Ewald worked in the iron mine's office. His godson would later say he didn't like to get his hands dirty. My kind of guy. Make a capital letter there. And so the Young Farmers were, in fact, 2 young miners and an office worker, which is to say that they were participants in the industrial economy, not just observers of it. The iron from the mine where they worked would, in fact, go toward building weapons in the coming war. Sonder himself had worked in an iron ore mine beginning when he was 13, and so he may have felt some affinity toward these boys. The photographer Mary Stieber once noted, "Respect is the most important thing you put into your camera." And Sonder's respect for these 3 subjects is evident in the picture. Indeed, it was Sonder's respect for his subjects that would eventually earn the ire of the Nazi regime. Sonder photographed Jewish and Roma people and disabled people. One section of People of the 20th Century is devoted to the persecuted. And in 1934, Nazi authorities destroyed the printing blocks for a collection of Sonder's photography and burned all available copies of the book. Sonder's son, Eric, was imprisoned for being a communist in 1935 and died in prison a decade later, just months before the Second World War ended. But we haven't even gotten to the first one yet. It's the spring of 1918. Eric Sonder is only 15 years old. The 3 young farmers who weren't farmers lived in a village of around 150 people in the Westerwald Mountains in Western Germany. Back then, the village wasn't accessible by car, so to visit, Sonder drove to the end of the road and then walked his camera equipment up the mountain for miles. Otto, August, and Ewald really were on their way to a dance, which was in a little town about a 45-minute walk away. Sonder probably knew their route in advance and was set up when they arrived. They paused in front of the camera, turned their heads over their shoulders, and held still. Otto, hat cocked, cigarette in his lips, looked like the kind of trouble you wouldn't mind getting into. August, handsome and confident, is a little bit sleepy-eyed. And then there's anxious Ewald, hand tightly gripping his cane. It's silly to make broad conclusions about real human beings from a single frame of their lives. Sonder himself noted of his subjects, I freeze one moment in his movement, a mere 500th of a second of that person's lifetime. That's a very meager or small extract from a life. Still, I can't help but imagine the moments before and after. I wondered what they talked about as they walked. I wonder if they had a good time, how late they stayed out, whether they drank, who they danced with. We know it was Saturday, summertime. We know that they were out of the mine, in the light. And we know that it must have been one of the last dances they attended together, because the war was coming fast. Only a few months later, all three boys were called to serve in the German armed forces in World War I. Otto and August were placed into the same regiment and sent to Belgium to fight. In January of 1915, only a few months after the young farmer's photo, August Klein sent home this picture from snowy Belgium. The boys look different now. The future, which had been just over the horizon, has come into view. But even then, August and Otto could not know. They couldn't know that August would be killed in the war that March, one of 20 million people to die in World War I. Otto would be wounded twice, but survived the war. Ewald, who was assigned to a different regiment, was also wounded, but eventually made it back to his village, where he lived to old age. Alice Walker once wrote that all history is current, and I think that's true in so many ways. History flows through us, shaping contemporary experience, and history is also current in that it changes as we look back on the past from different presents. But history is current in the electric sense too. It is charged and flowing. It takes power from some sources and delivers it to others. Sonder once said he believed photography could help hold fast the history of the world. But there is no holding history fast. It is always receding and dissolving, not just into the unknowable past, but into the unfixable future. The strange thing about humans is not so much that we can't remember the past or predict the future. It's that we can fathom the past, including the pasts before we were born, like the past in which August Sonder and his subjects lived, and even the pasts before there were humans, and also that we can fathom the future, just not with precision. In that sense, good photographs remind us both of what we can see and of what we can't. I cannot really remember precisely how that picture of laughing kids tangled together felt before a global pandemic rendered it so strangely voltaic. And I cannot imagine how it will look to my future selves. All I can see is that picture changing as time flees away from it. August Klein was 22 years old when he died. He had around a year to live when he posed for the famous photograph. Anything might have happened, but one thing did. I guess I love that picture because it reminds me of what pictures cannot show. I give Three Farmers on Their Way to a Dance 4 stars. It's the end. There's a little bit this stuff about like predicting the future. Is I agree. It's not that I don't think it's good. It's that I don't think that it's tight. Like it feels drifty. You know, like I don't know how to restate that in a sentencier form, you know, in a tighter, and maybe I don't need it. I don't know that I need that. It may just be the strength of it anyway is in that idea that the multiple meanings of current and then going into the kids tangled together. The bit about like being able to imagine the past and the future, I just think that's an interesting thing about humans that like I think that's a very interesting thing about humans, that we are much better at imagining the past than any other species. Like it's one of our superpowers, I think, but I don't know that that needs to be in that essay. I don't know. It's a tough call. There's a lot to. I mean, there's a lot that I think I was trying to do there. Um, and somebody said that there's maybe like one too many quotes, and I kind of feel like there might be one too many quotes. I really like that Mary Stieber quote about how respect is the most important thing you put into your camera, but it's the obviously superfluous one. Um, And then the other one that I think is maybe superfluous is that Vonnegut quote about how history is merely a list of surprises that can only prepare us to be surprised yet again. Although it's a nice, I mean, it's a great line. Like, he was quite the aphorist. But like, it's maybe more powerful to just have it be like, in January of 2020, the picture made me laugh. By July, not so much. I don't know. Yeah. But I will go back and read all of your comments about it later. So, somebody said he cut the Vonnegut quote, so it goes. Yeah, I mean, I want the idea of the Anthropocene Reviewed is to make it fairly discursive. Like, I want it to feel like you're wandering. Um, so my theory about this has always been like that if you feel like you're wandering and then you find out that you aren't, it's much more powerful. Like it hits a lot harder if you thought you were just like on a ramble about the fields going this way and that and not heading in any particular direction, and then found out that you like landed in a very specific spot that you didn't necessarily see coming. Like that's what I really like in essays, and like that's my favorite essayists are very, very good at that. Rebecca Solnit is very, very good at that. Yeah, so like that's kind of, I guess, what I'm a little bit of what I'm going for. So I wouldn't, I don't want it to like lose its discursiveness completely, but I want it to hit hard when it hits, you know? You have that moment of being like, oh, she was taking me in a very specific direction and I didn't see it coming. It's a little bit like, it's a tiny bit of a version of the feeling that you have when you read a great mystery novel and the ending is revealed and you feel surprised. Rebecca Solnit is very good at this. The podcast Heavyweight, Jonathan Goldstein's podcast Heavyweight is extremely good at that. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, this is not a perfect comp, but like, I think the reason people loved Tiger King, the Netflix documentary, was because Tiger King did that. Like, you thought that you were just like being introduced to a bunch of like crazy big cat lovers, but then every episode, at least the first like few episodes, would like have an unexpected hit that you could have seen coming but you didn't see coming, and that like made you want to watch the next episode, and that's kind of what propelled you through the document. So it has to do that without being repetitive, which is, I think, the challenge, because I mean, it'll be a book like Sarah's book, You Are an Artist. Like, it's a book that you pick up and put down. It's not, I don't think it's a book that you like necessarily need to read straight through, but I want it to be consistently rewarding. So that's what I got to think about. Yeah. Yeah. So that's some of what I just wanted to give. That's some of what I'm reading, some of what I'm thinking about while I'm working on the Anthropocene Reviewed book. But on the whole, I thought that actually held together better than I expected it to, considering that it was pretty rough. So that's a little bit of a relief. Does anybody? So I'll try to answer questions now, and then if you came late to the show, it's going to stay up as an unlisted video, and you can watch it, show it to your friends. That's fine. Yeah. Oh, after you talked about the Nazis' impact on the photos, you said spring of 1918, but I think you meant spring of 1914. That's very helpful, because you're right. We were not in the spring of 1918, by which time the war was over. We were in the spring of 1914. Let me fix that. I did not know that Saunders' son had died until relatively recently. The story of August Saunders' son. Yep, thank you. That is correct. The story of August Saunders' son is an extremely sad story. And there is he smuggled out. He was a photographer as well, and he smuggled out a picture of himself near the end of his life. That's just heartbreaking. Okay. So I'm gonna answer some questions. Great. Will the live streams be continuing until the book is released? I don't know. I'm gonna be doing them for a while, and then I don't know. I mean, the book doesn't come out for a long time, so it feels difficult to make like an 8-month commitment right now. But I want to do them pretty regularly, just because I don't know. I could use a boost, and it also like helps me to read out loud. Yeah. What is the poster, the colorful one on your blue wall? On my blue wall. You know, I have to say, that one? I don't know what any of those things. The two ones in there are artwork made by our kids a long time ago, I think. The top one is some kind of collage that I think Sarah made. Sarah likes to make like mosaic-y collages, so that looks to me like probably Sarah artwork, but I'm not sure. I have no idea what that is. I think it's related to an art assignment, and that is a picture of Woody Guthrie's guitar that said "This machine kills fascists," which I don't know. I'm less sure about machines that kill fascists than I used to be. Not that I'm less sure that I'm opposed to fascism. I'm just less sure about what effectively prevents or minimizes fascism. Okay, so I'm gonna answer some questions. Allison says thanks. Thank you. Will the codes lead to these live streams? Yeah, or other things. I don't know, but yeah, probably these live streams. Will you include the QWERTY keyboard review in the book? So I don't know that any of these will end up in the book, for sure. But currently the QWERTY keyboard review is in the book. The thing that I like about it in the book is that, well, so there's things that I like and don't like about it. It's a very male story. Like all the characters in it are 19th century men, which I feel like maybe we've heard enough of. But what I like about it, and also like that a little bit disguises some of the people who had a lot of influence on how keyboards actually came to be, many of whom were women whose names just weren't recorded because of the nature of the way history is told. So it's one that I've been looking at a lot and thinking about in that context. But then also, what I like about it is that it's a story of iterative change and like minor change, not a story of like an inventor inventing something. Which is like we like stories of like heroic individuals doing heroically individual things, and in this book I try to write about a bunch of times when maybe the heroic individual story that we read, like Charles Darrow inventing Monopoly, is a little bit misleading, because Charles Darrow, for instance, did not invent Monopoly, nor in fact did he invent anything important about Monopoly. Yeah, but I like there's a lot of things I like about the QWERTY keyboard in general, and I find it interesting of how we ended up with a standardized keyboard that like is objectively so weird, but actually like pretty efficient. So I'm torn, like I am about almost everything these days. Favorite Sharpie, green, and then there's one between red and purple. I don't know what they call it. That's in like the 10-pack that I'm also quite fond of. That's sort of like a like a richer magenta. But I like the old-fashioned green one. Is the AFC Wimbledon movie still happening? I don't know. I it's nobody has the rights at the moment, so I haven't. I certainly haven't. I certainly don't. I don't think at the moment. I don't think it's happening. I would like it to happen, but I can't. It's like I can't. Yeah, I can't make it happen by myself. Partly because I can't. I'm terrible at writing screenplays. Yeah. Okay. All right. So what are some of my favorite new reviews? That Three Farmers review is probably the one that's the most finished. It's based on an art assignment video. There's also a review of the world's largest ball of paint, which if you I've made a Vlogbrothers video about a few times over the years. Penguins of Madagascar, I think, will be pretty interesting. The review of mirtazapine has been an interesting challenge. That's a drug that I take. So yeah, those are some of my favorites. How did you decide which colors you're using to sign? It's pretty random this time, Kim. I'm just signing. Well, right now I was signing with whatever Sharpies they had at Target, which wasn't actually that many. I don't know if there's some kind of national Sharpie shortage, the way there's a national shortage of Diet Dr. Pepper. But yeah, I just signed with I'm signing with what I have right now. But then hopefully I'll get some better Sharpies down the road. I also have Sharpie sent me 60 green Sharpies. So I should be good for 20,000 or 30,000 sheets of paper, which is a lot. So I don't really, why am I buying Sharpies? I don't really need to buy Sharpies. Several of you have asked about Diet Dr. Pepper. There is still a shortage of Diet Dr. Pepper in the United States, but it's getting less acute. I have been able to find Diet Dr. Pepper a few times. Notepad Review says, John, I remember you talking about Earl Sweatshirt in an old video. Do you still listen to him? I do. Yeah. Earl Sweatshirt is a regular on my workout playlist, and I listen to a lot of rap music. His recent stuff is a little too challenging and obscure for me, but I still like his music a lot. Aaron asked for an office tour, but this is the whole office. Other than this, it's just a TV and some sheets of paper over there. I don't even know if you can see the sheets of paper, but they're there. Oh yeah, you can see them. They're directly under the light. So this is the whole thing. Okay, I have to go in a few minutes, but I want to answer a few more things, a few more questions. I don't want to answer any more questions about the hunts because I don't know. I don't know yet. Okay. Yeah, it is a large TV. I shouldn't have said just a TV. I have a large TV. Is Sarah going to design the cover of the Anthropocene Reviewed book? Probably not. I mean, she's not. She doesn't want to. Yeah, she doesn't really want to. And also, Sarah's a big believer in designers, she loves good designers, and I don't think she. Yeah, so I asked her if she wanted to, and she said no. So, Paul says, I'm about to start my junior year of college online, and when we did this last spring, it felt temporary, but now it feels long term. The weird thing is the more long term it feels, the less long term it is. The more it feels permanent, the closer it is to ending. But yeah, I don't know how to get through this effectively. If I did, I would love to tell you tips and tricks, but I don't really have any. I do think that it's going to end, and as far as school goes, you learn what you can learn. It's not ideal, but you learn what you can learn. I know you talked about the struggle of having your personal life in your writing. Thoughts on Love at First Sight episode in the book? Yeah, I mean, the thing about the Love at First Sight episode is it's not very personal. Like, in a lot of ways, there are other ones that are way more personal, like the Whispering one about um, religion and parenting and everything. That's way more personal to me than like saying I loved my kids the minute they were born. Like, that's a pretty like generic. In general, like when it comes to writing about my family or like, or even like talking about my family in public like this, like I'm pretty okay with generic stuff because you know that's not a it's not revealing. I guess like it's not particularly revealing to say that I loved my kids from the moment um, they were born. The things that like I wouldn't write about and like frankly like you wouldn't know or like whether my kids have disabilities or whether my kids have I don't know green eyes or whether they have I don't know anger management problems or whatever like the things that are specific and particular to them. I don't feel like it's my place to talk about that. um yeah, so I don't. Um, I don't really. Yeah, I just feel like that's where that's where I draw the line now. Um, yeah, but I don't know. How do you come up with lines on the spot? Like the more it feels permanent, the closer it is to ending. Well, in that case, I was thinking I was just stealing a line from Terry Pratchett. Terry Pratchett has this great observation in one of his later books that the further you sail, the world is a globe, and the further you sail away from home, the closer you are to home. And I butchered the line. It's better than that, but I was thinking about that. Yeah. Uh, um, yeah. Is the cover going to be the same as the podcast? I don't know. I don't know. And am I going to keep playing video games as a pacifist? I really like playing Minecraft as a pacifist. Like it's more fun than playing Fortnite because in Minecraft it's like a legitimate gameplay strategy. You can get pretty far in the game without ever killing anything, and so I might do that. It's a little hard, like just like functionally setting up Twitch from home is a little hard. Like I have a hard time with that. It's like very practical challenge. Somebody asked what my favorite podcast is. I talk about this in the most recent episode of the Anthropocene Review, but like as much as I resent being interviewed sometimes and like feel like I've had interview experiences where I talked too much or like revealed too much and wasn't able to walk it back and haven't been able to walk it back and have like public life that's maybe separate from the public life I would want to have. I love interview shows. So I love Death, Sex, and Money, Anna Sales interview show. And in fact, like I think that show does a really, really good job of respecting the I guess the boundaries of the people who are being interviewed. And I also love the way that Anna Sale interviews people because whether you're like a famous person or not, she does the same like level of preparation and treats every guest with the same level of respect. And so I really like Death, Sex, and Money. I just think it's a really moving, beautiful podcast. Uh, and I listen to Fresh Air as well. And then, on narrative podcasts, I love Serial. I think what Serial, like the choices Serial has made to me, like when you get that successful and like when you have a moment where you're like in pop culture and people are making Saturday Night Live sketches about you and everything. um i I think like I think when I was younger and like maybe also like before it happened to me, I thought that was like really, really desirable, like maybe the most desirable thing that could happen to a human being. um and it's not. It's not, but uh I don't know that me saying that will do anything to dissuade people. The social order is so oriented around, being famous is good, and obviously, like, having a public life has given me a lot of things that are really nice and that I'm very grateful for. But like Serial had that moment where they were at the very center of pop culture, and like the obvious thing to do when that happens is to try to hold on to it, to try to make more stuff like that, to make Serial 2, Electric Boogaloo, or whatever. But what they did instead, especially with season 3, is they said, "Oh my gosh, like we have a big platform because we made something, and we should talk about not the justice system as it is usually portrayed in the United States, which is by looking at really exceptional, unusual cases like the case of this one particular murder, but instead, like, we should look at the sort of everyday functioning of this of this criminal justice system." And it isn't as newsworthy, right? Like SNL isn't making sketches about Serial, but it's much more impactful. It's much more like deeply meaningful, I think, and the people who've listened to it have been more reshaped by that listening experience. So I admire the hell out of what they've done, and in general, like, I just think it's really admirable and not easy to make that choice. Did you make Hank solve the puzzle himself, or did you discuss the puzzle with him? Has Hank solved the puzzle? I don't have any indication that he has solved the puzzle. He hasn't texted me or anything. I did not tell Hank that I was even doing a puzzle. I feel like Hank is, I don't think Hank has done it. I think Hank is like probably working right now. Yeah. If Hank wants to solve it, he can. He'll figure it out. I tried to make this one not too hard, so I think he'll probably figure it out. Why wasn't there a Beautifully Foolish Endeavor hunt? Yeah, I mean, I would have loved to see one, and I think, like, obviously Hank's books lend themselves to that way more than my books do, and Hank is also really good at that. Like when we did a scavenger hunt in 2007 in Nerdfighteria, Hank was incredibly good at it, and we also did a thing called This Is Not Tom together with a person named Alex, and Hank was really good at that too. I just think right now Hank is overstretched. He has to run Complexly and DFTBA, and the stuff I do is different. Like, I don't have to do the kind of like that boss running stuff side of things, which is very nice for me because I'm both bad at it and don't enjoy it. Yes, and also Hank has to make like 17 TikToks a day. I shouldn't make it sound like Hank works 60 hours a week doing nothing but making educational video, because he makes a lot of TikToks. But he's a good TikToker. Yeah, he is a very ambitious, hardworking person, and I am so lucky to be kind of the tail to his comet. And mostly I'm just in awe of him. So yeah, he's incredible. We'll see. He's working on stuff. Will I go back to TikTok? I mean, I thought about making a TikTok about the Anthropocene Reviewed book, and then I was like, oh God, I mean, does anyone even has anyone ever pre-ordered a book based on a TikTok? Probably not. And also, like, do I want to, I don't know, engage TikTok? I don't know. I'm on the fence. Yeah, I've made 3 TikToks, and that feels like a good number. Yeah, my TikToks they did great. And I don't, why mess with it? If I have another good idea for a TikTok, maybe I'll make one. But like, I also just I like watching TikTok, but I don't feel compelled to create on the platform. Yeah. Well, I could write a review of TikTok. That's a pretty good idea, but I don't know. I don't know. I thought about, like, I mean, it would be interesting and complicated to try to write a review of something that's close to me in that way, of like the internet or Twitter or Tumblr or Reddit or whatever. Uh, but I don't know that I'm really. I don't know that I'm settled enough in what I think about that stuff to have a strong opinion. And B, like, I still feel too wrapped up in it. It doesn't feel like part of my past yet. It feels, even though I haven't really like been on the internet much since, or on the Twitter, Tumblr, Reddit side of the internet, Facebooky side of the internet, in the last couple of years, it still feels, yeah, I don't know, just like close somehow, or unpleasant to talk about. Uh, yeah. Somebody asked if the Anthropocene reviewed shower curtain is going to happen. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. Just because, well, maybe. I mean, I also like don't know what it's going to be like. To be honest, like, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life after May 18th. Um, so maybe I'll like want to keep making a lot of Anthropocene reviewed episodes and do a shower curtain and a vinyl record and see if I can, support Partners in Health and my family that way. Uh, but I mean, my feeling at the moment is that I would rather uh, try to write another novel. But I don't know. It's a long way away. I've, you know, I have no idea what the world is going to look like in 8 months. I have no idea what kind of opportunities are going to be out there professionally. I don't know what Complexly is going to need. So yeah, it's a long way away. It's hard to know. Um, yeah. Uh, Somebody says that they had a Twitter for 40 minutes before deleting it. TikTok is better. I mean, TikTok is more fun than Twitter, but Twitter doesn't exist to be fun. It exists to make people want to check Twitter. Like, Twitter is very good at making people want to refresh Twitter, which is what it exists to do. It doesn't have a second motive. There's all kinds of downstream effects from making a device that exists for no reason except to make people want to refresh it. Okay, I am gonna go because I have to go take care of my kiddos. But somebody asked for a book recommendation. The last episode of the Anthropocene Reviewed for Now, which comes out at the end of the month, is about I don't, I listen. I could have planned this better. I could have, yeah, I couldn't have planned it worse. But I got to a point where I had to write the last episode, and the only thing that I'd been reading about for the last 3 months was the Black Death. So I wrote an essay about the Black Death. So that's what it's about. But in that process, I read a really, really good book by Rosemary Horrocks called The Black Death, that is a collection of primary sources, written, who were eyewitnesses to this this astonishing, unprecedented human experience of seeing the, what at the time was believed to be the entire human population, basically cut in half in a 4 to 7 year period. And it's a really interesting book. One of the things that I worry about a lot about contemporary discourse is that there are lots of ways we privilege certain voices over other voices. But we really privilege the voices of the living, and that's always been the case to some extent. But we really don't engage very deeply, very often, with history, and or at least I don't. In my daily life, I'm much more likely to like hear whether it's on television or the radio or even on Twitter or whatever, or in my own life, I'm much more likely to hear from a living person than I am from a dead person. Uh, that's just like the way that it works. So it was really interesting to read these eyewitness accounts from the 14th century because it's a little bit of a glimpse into what human life felt like that long ago, and what the big forces in human life were perceived to be. And it's interesting to put that in the context of what the big forces of human life feel like now. And in the same way that their reality felt as fixed and certain and unfixable or like unsolvable as our reality does now. Uh, but it's like helpful. I don't know. I just found it helpful to like try to see ourselves in that context. I don't know if it, yeah, so I don't know if it worked as an essay, but it was an interesting book. The book is better, of course, than the review that resulted from it, but that's always the case. So, all right, have a wonderful day or night wherever you are. Really appreciate y'all being here. It was such a joy to come in to that. We're here because we're here, and I hope that you're well wherever you are. And I'll see you next week, hopefully. All right, bye.